Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vago Muradian here at the Naval Submarine League's annual conference and trade show here in Northern Virginia, and we're talking to a former commander of the United States Submarine Force, Vice Admiral Mike Connor, who is now the president and CEO of one of the most interesting companies in the undersea ecosystem, ThayerMahan. Sir, thanks very much for joining us.
Vago, it's so great to see you again.
It's an absolute pleasure. We talked to you 2 years ago when you were new, a handful of employees. You're now up to about 14, right, and still a very, very aggressive growth plan. Talk to us a little bit about, it's a unique company. You're lucky in that everybody has been talking about it and some of the great things you do. Talk to us about what the company does before we get to some of the business specifics.
Sure, it's very simple. We took our experience as submariners and we looked at what are the things that submarines do and surface ships do that could, in this new age, be done by long-dwell autonomous vehicles. And then we went and we scoured the country to find the platforms and the payloads that would enable those missions. And in some cases we found them with partner companies, and in some cases we had to build them ourselves.
And so you guys are now making money, which is very good.
We're making money, that's a good thing. I don't feel that it's not time to rest by any stretch, but we're making progress, we're hiring, we're growing. We're up to about 14 people right now, and we expect to double over the course of the next year.
And as you, so what are some of the focus areas? I know that you can't talk about all the focus areas and what you guys do, obviously, but what are some of the focus areas? You know, when you look at that unmanned revolution, and you and I spoke about this when you were commander of the submarine force, about the dangerous, dull, dirty work but the undersea environment is so demanding, and the ranges are such and the complexities of autonomous operations, not to get caught in the net. I mean, there's a whole series of challenges that go with it. What are some of the focus areas that you can talk about where the customer is and how you guys are trying to help the customer in this very, very challenging but very important space?
Sure, so we have three basic thrusts in technology. We do acoustic search in the ocean, we do electronic search over the ocean, and we do very precise mapping of the seafloor and the things that are on it. And we tend to favor the customers, military and other government customers who have needs, but maybe they're not the most well-resourced organizations in the world, and they traditionally look for alternatives. And we present ourselves as an alternative who can, on the lower end of the complexity scale, we can do the same missions that are done by ships, aircraft, and submarines, in many cases for less than 1% of the fully burdened cost of the platforms that currently do those missions.
Wow. From an investment perspective, right? I mean, raising capital is always a challenge for anybody. I know that that's not alien to you, and that you've been intimately engaged in that. Has it been easy to raise capital for something that's as challenging and also in a very, very competitive field, right? I mean, you guys are not the only guys who are trying to do this.
I've got to tell you, raising capital was completely foreign to me when I retired from the Navy. I had no idea how it was done. Fortunately, I had a partner who was a veteran of Silicon Valley, and he guided us through the process. But the idea that you can take your idea in about a 20-page PowerPoint brief and go down to Wall Street or San Francisco or someplace like that, talk to some people who have put some thought into it, and actually raise enough money to start a company in a matter of a week or two, it was amazing to me. This is like one of these wonderful things about America that I didn't know when I was in the military.
And you didn't have to go to the comptroller or the N8 and ask them for money.
We didn't. So the typical investor today it has a general sense of the value of robotics, of artificial intelligence, of autonomous systems, and so forth. But they also have a deep concern about the government as a customer. Most of the people who invest in my company traditionally invest in non-government technologies, and so they're mildly concerned, maybe more than mildly concerned, about the ability to go from having a technology to getting your customer base to accept the technology and invest in it. Invest in it in a way that if you developed a lot of intellectual property in producing whatever it is that you produce, that you can harvest the benefits of having done that.
What is the state of the technology, right? Artificial intelligence, there are those who say, look, it's overwrought, it's not ready, it does some things well, but you have to define the problem very well, so it becomes kind of a unique thing. It's not as self-learning and self-forming as everybody wants. When you look at the undersea space, propulsion is still a challenge and a question, how to get that energy density packed even into a very large unmanned underwater vehicle and have it be able to go out and do things for a long period of time. How do you gauge the maturity level of some of this technology for some of these applications, especially from a long endurance standpoint, for example?
Well, we think about that a lot. So we have to find technologies that are somewhat mature, and because our whole goal is to go from concept to an at-sea application in a matter of 6 to 12 months. So we understand the limitations of some of the power issues. So we chose to live with our platforms on the interface between the air and the ocean, because that's where the energy is. So we get energy from wave action. That's where most of our propulsion comes from, and the vehicles that we use predominantly.
Wave glider, for example.
Wave glider vehicles. And then we get our electronic energy via solar from the sun. And so then the challenge becomes, how do we create a useful payload that can sense, store, analyze, and communicate all within the average power delivery of those systems, and maintain station in challenging seas and in sometimes challenging currents.
I think that is just one of the most extraordinary vehicles in the world, and when you calculate how much torque that thing produces to tow a payload, it's positively eye-watering.
It is eye-watering, and but we're happy to use that platform, and we're investigating some others, but that's a very good platform, and it does a lot for us.
Let me ask you about the state of the art worldwide, because I know you've got to go here in a minute. China, a lot of investment in some of these capabilities. The Russians always, fortunately aren't too boastful about the things that they're fielding out there, but they made a great show of unmanned underwater vehicles they were using, for example, off Syria. As a former commander, submarine force commander, what does this environment look like? And what's the right way to look at potential adversaries and their capabilities? We've always prided ourselves on having a submarine force and undersea capabilities that are supreme, but you're also a Cold War submariner, so you know when it was in a more contested environment. How do you see this shaping up? What's the right way for folks to think about America's adversaries in this undersea domain?
Well, as you'll see in this conference, one of the main thrusts is that we are once again in the age of peer competition with very able competitors, so point number one. Point number two is, the last time we were in this situation, we were all using technologies that evolved over years, if not decades. That is not the case now. So the technology half-lives will be much shorter, and we have no reason to believe that we can proceed at a genteel pace and maintain the advantage that we have today. We have to be very aggressive, because the competitors that we have are being very aggressive. The CNO likes to say that it's like, hey, we're in a football game, and at halftime we're up by 24 points. And now it's the fourth quarter, and we're up by 3. That's about the type of concern that we ought to have in the underwater technologies and in the autonomous technologies.
Do you feel that urgency, that pace, and do you feel things accelerating in terms of how the Navy is doing business? Given that sometimes the Navy can be exceptionally fast at fielding things, but also then can be somewhat more plodding than everybody would like. Do you feel that change of pace?
I would say we're seeing that in some places. Clearly, some customers are more enlightened than others.
And last question, you're growing, what are the kinds of skill sets you need? If somebody sees this, what are the kind of high quality skills you want from people? You have a very diverse staff, you have a lot of submariners, you have Army special operators with distinguished records also on your team. What are some of the skill sets you want on this team as you try to double your size?
As a company, we're looking for a diverse set of skills. We want people who are experienced operators. At the same time, we want people who are current in the state of the art in computer science, data science, mechanical engineering, and electrical engineering.
Retired United States Navy Vice Admiral Mike Connor, former commander of the United States Navy Submarine Force. Sir, absolute pleasure. Now the President and CEO of ThayerMahan. Best of luck to you, and I look forward to talking to you when you pass that 40,000 employee mark.
I'll give you a call when we do. Take care.
Thank you, sir.